The house smelled faintly of coffee and wood polish, the kind of homely scent that James Carter had grown used to over the years. He sat on the edge of the couch, his work boots still on, flipping through a stack of unpaid bills that seemed to grow taller every month. The creak of the old house reminded him again why he had put up that ad for the spare room. A little extra income might help with groceries, repairs, and maybe, just maybe, save up enough to give his son Ethan the things he deserved. Being a single dad wasn't easy, and sometimes the weight of it all pressed down harder than he liked to admit. A sudden knock on the front door broke the heavy silence. James glanced at Ethan, who was sitting cross-legged on the floor, crayons spread everywhere as he worked on a spaceship drawing. "Stay here, buddy," James said, rising with a sigh. When he opened the door, the storm outside was in full swing. A young woman stood there under a flimsy umbrella, rain dripping from her hair onto her hoodie. Her eyes were a warm shade of hazel, white and uncertain as they met his. She looked about 19 or 20, with a backpack slung over her shoulder and a nervous smile tugging at her lips. "Hi," she said, her voice soft but steady. "I'm Lily. I saw your listing for the room, is it still available?" James stepped aside quickly, gesturing her in before the rain could soak her through. "Yeah, it's available. Come on in before you freeze." She stepped into the warmth of the small living room, brushing a few strands of wet hair from her face. Her eyes moved around the house, taking in the hand-me-down furniture, the cozy clutter of Ethan's toys, and the framed stick figure drawings on the wall. Despite its simplicity, there was a lived-in warmth here that she didn't miss. "This is my son, Ethan," James said as the boy peeked shyly over the back of the couch. Ethan gave a small wave before ducking behind his drawing again. "Hi, Ethan," Lily said, crouching a little to meet his level. "That's a cool spaceship you're working on." Ethan's cheeks flushed with pride. "Thanks," he mumbled, glancing at his dad for approval before returning to his paper. James motioned toward the worn but clean sofa. "Have a seat. You want some tea? It'll warm you up." She nodded gratefully, slipping off her damp sneakers before sitting. When he returned with a mug, she wrapped her hands around it like she hadn't had something warm all day. "So," James began, settling across from her. "Tell me a little about yourself. You said you're a student." She nodded. "Yes, at Riverside University. I'm a literature major. I wanted a place off campus, somewhere quiet." Her voice dipped on the last part, like she was careful with her words. "Roommates giving you trouble?" he asked lightly. "Something like that," she replied, forcing a small laugh. But her eyes betrayed a heaviness, something she wasn't ready to share. James recognized it, he'd seen it often enough in people carrying burdens. He didn't press further. Instead, he stood and gestured for her to follow. "Let me show you the room." The spare bedroom was simple, a single bed with a plain quilt, a small dresser, and a window that overlooked the yard. It wasn't much, but it was clean and private. Lily walked in slowly, her hand brushing across the quilt as though testing reality. "It's perfect," she whispered, more to herself than to him. Ethan had trailed behind them and now poked his head inside. "Are you gonna stay here?" he asked, his wide eyes full of curiosity. Lily crouched down again, her smile softening. "If your dad lets me, yes." For a moment, James saw something different in her expression. Not just relief, but gratitude, like she wasn't only looking for a roof, but a safe place to breathe. He cleared his throat, keeping his tone practical. "Rent's $500 a month, utilities included. If that works for you, the room's yours." Without hesitation, she reached into her backpack and handed him an envelope. "I can pay in cash." He took it, surprised by the neat stack of bills inside. "All right then. Welcome, Lily." What James didn't know, as he shook her hand, was that this young woman wasn't just another college student scraping by. She was Lily Bennett, daughter of Henry Bennett, the billionaire developer whose name was plastered on skyscrapers across the city. She could have had any luxury apartment she wanted, yet here she was, sitting in his modest home, choosing a life that didn't reveal who she really was. And for now, she intended to keep that secret. Because for the first time in a long time, she felt like just Lily, not the billionaire's daughter, but a girl who might have finally found a place where she belonged. The days that followed fell into a rhythm James hadn't realized he was missing. Lily fit into the house in a way that surprised him, moving quietly in the mornings, making coffee before she left for class, and always taking a moment to chat with Ethan before heading out the door. Ethan, who was usually shy with strangers, seemed to have opened his heart to her instantly. James couldn't deny that her presence changed the air in the house. It felt less lonely, less heavy. One evening, after a long day at the auto shop, James came home to the sound of laughter. Not the faint, polite kind, but full-throated giggles that carried through the walls. He paused at the door, the tension of the day loosening as he listened. When he stepped into the living room, he found Lily and Ethan sprawled across the floor, surrounded by Lego bricks. A spaceship, half-built, stretched across the rug. Ethan's eyes lit up when he saw his dad. "Look, Dad, Lily helped me make this. It's got boosters and everything." James set down his jacket and bent to examine the creation. "Wow, you've outdone yourself, kiddo. And Lily, looks like you've got some engineering skills." She laughed, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I just followed Ethan's lead. He's the captain, I'm the assistant." Ethan puffed his chest proudly. "She even let me be in charge. She said I'm the boss." James smiled at the sight of his son glowing with confidence. It had been so long since anyone outside of family had taken this much interest in Ethan. After dinner, James found himself talking with Lily more easily than he'd expected. The dishes were drying in the rack, Ethan was asleep on the couch, and the house felt unusually calm. "You're really good with him," James said, leaning against the counter. "Most people don't have that kind of patience." She shrugged, her eyes soft. "He's a great kid. You've done an amazing job raising him." James felt a pang in his chest. Praise was rare in his world, and hearing it from her struck something deep inside. He rubbed the back of his neck, unsure what to say. "I just do what I can. It's not perfect, but I try." For a moment, their eyes held, and Lily almost said more, almost confessed the truth of who she was and why she had really come here. But the fear stopped her. She liked being seen like this, not as a name with wealth attached, but as someone who could sit on a kitchen stool and talk about homework and bedtime routines. A few days later, James was mowing the lawn when a sleek black car rolled up to the curb. It was completely out of place in their modest neighborhood, its polished exterior catching the afternoon sun. James slowed, frowning, as a man in a tailored suit stepped out. He walked briskly to the porch and called out, "Miss Bennett, your father insists you come home." Immediately, before James could fully process what he'd heard, Lily rushed out of the house. Her face was pale, her eyes sharp with panic. She intercepted the man before he could say another word, speaking to him in a hushed but urgent tone. After a tense exchange, the man gave a reluctant nod, returned to the car, and drove away without another glance. James turned off the mower, his chest tightening with questions he didn't know how to form. When Lily came back inside, she avoided his eyes. That evening, after Ethan had gone to bed, James found her sitting at the kitchen table, fiddling with a chipped mug. "Everything all right?" he asked gently, taking a seat across from her. "That guy today, he seemed to know you." Her fingers tightened around the mug. For a long moment, she didn't speak. Then she nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "It's just family stuff. Complicated." James studied her, sensing the walls she was carefully building. He wanted to push, but he stopped himself. Everyone had their reasons, and he knew what it was like to protect pieces of yourself from the world. So he simply said, "If you ever need to talk, I'm here." Her throat tightened, and she gave him a small, grateful smile. "Thank you." Later that night, as she sat with Ethan on the couch, watching cartoons until his eyelids grew heavy, Lily thought about how different this life was from the one she had left behind. There were no chandeliers, no drivers waiting outside, no sprawling penthouse with a view of the skyline. But there was warmth here, laughter, and a kind of honesty she had never known. For the first time, she wasn't Henry Bennett's daughter. She wasn't a billionaire's heiress. She was just Lily, the girl who read bedtime stories, washed dishes, and helped build Lego spaceships on the living room floor. And as James quietly watched her from the doorway, he felt something he hadn't allowed himself to feel in years, a fragile but undeniable sense of hope.